Hi, my name is Emmy Cotroneo. I am using the one of the strategies from the text for how I would do middle school, probably sixth grade story problems unit. I have this is the strategy that is featured in Apply the Concept 11.9. And I've made really a big primary part of this is I've made a checklist that I would print off and give to my students. I did use this is my second time recording this. The first time I tried to walk through the lesson verbally like I was giving the lesson, and it ended up getting way beyond my 15-minute limit that I have with Screencast-O-Matic. So I just wanted to more slowly talk, or not more slowly, more quickly rather, talk about how I would do this lesson rather than giving the lesson right now. So first, I would show students. This first one is one that I'm going to show students. So I'm going to say, well, my first step is to read the problem aloud and whisper it to yourself. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to be using this checklist and kind of modeling how the students will use this checklist. They'll have this accessible to them in class to kind of increase their independence so that they're not. I have some students who every time between every step are raising their hand and saying, Frau Cotroneo, what do I do next? Okay, I finished that step. What do I do next? So I want them to be able to feel confident in themselves, to be able to just do it on their own. And a part of that is having this tool of a sheet right here. So I'm going to show them, okay, first I read it out loud to myself, and then I'm going to paraphrase it. And the way that I did this when I was walking through it is I wanted to point out what the important information is. So even though it says later on in State the Problem to underline the important information, I would actually say that goes better with paraphrase because the students, and for myself when I do this, it's easier for me to pick out and be able to paraphrase the important information if I underline it or highlight it. So I did that in that step. And let the students know that that's okay if that's what helps you. So say the important information, pay attention to the numbers in the problem, and look at the questions. So I see questions of how many. That tells me that that's where my questions are coming. How many more? That's where I'm going to need to pay attention. So I paraphrase the problem by saying, Henry wants to buy a bike that costs $140. He has $84. He makes $7 an hour at his job. How many hours does he need to work? So just kind of simplifying what the questions were and what the parts of the problem are. I visualize the information. I have, part of with the visualizing information, it's drawing out for the students and showing them how you might do it and some good examples of visualizing information, but then also how you visualize and how your brain thinks, letting students know that it's unique, and if what I'm doing doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. You can do it a different way. What sort of visualizations, what drawing or representation is going to help you, and when you find something that really works for you, use it. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work for me. If it's helping you get to the answer and understand what you're doing, great. So then I get down to my state the problem point, and I will lay out. I lay out then what I have, what I know. I know that the bike costs $140. I know that he saved $84, and I know that $7 is what he makes each hour. And I also know, and then that kind of moves on to what I'm going to find is how many hours he needs to work. And it's really important in this step, I really underscore the fact that at the beginning of the problem, I'm talking about dollar amounts, and then I get down, and my answer is not going to have anything to do with dollars. I'm getting to my answer using dollars, but I want to know hours, and that's something that's really important to get students to realize, because otherwise they'll end up with an answer that the units are dollars because they see dollars, 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 and then all of a sudden it changes to hours. So really important to underscore here, I want to find hours, and so I might even really underscore right here, how many more hours, to really drive that point home. So then I'll make it a hypothesis about how I solve the problem using what I know about math language. So I know that if he wants to buy something that costs this much and he already has this much, then I can subtract. So I know that first I'm going to be subtracting. So if I first subtract 84 from 140, and then I find out how, from that difference, how many times he needs to work 7 hours. So kind of turning that around, if I divide that into $7 or $7 chunks, I said hours, I meant dollars. So if I divide that leftover amount into $7 chunks, meaning each chunk is an hour, then I will know how many hours he needs to work. So this is kind of where we understand that the two functions we're doing, if I first subtract, then divide, also bringing in the specific information of from the problem, then I will get my answer. So estimating the answer using rounding, I kind of, here I talked about how I like the number 140 because it's a 3-digit number ending in 0. Those are easier for me to calculate. 84, I don't like that so much, so I decided to round that to the nearest 10. So I rounded it down to 80. And I know that I'm first going to have to subtract, and it's really easy for me to subtract 140 or 80 from 140. So I do that, and I see that it's 60, and I say, I can use 7 to estimate that, but if that's also confusing, I can also round this to the nearest 10, so say 10, and so 60 divided by 10, that's another one that's really easy for us because we know how tens work, and multiplying and dividing by tens, so that would be 6, approximately 6. Estimating is a little bit tougher on these ones with the smaller answers because it's going to actually, it gives you a totally different answer. And if they went with the answer of just 6, it's really different considering that it's just 2 away from the actual answer, but it makes a big difference when we're working with smaller numbers like this. But it does give the students an idea and a little bit of confidence. So, oops, I scrolled down on the wrong document. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to actually do my calculations. I'm going to do my 140 minus 84 and walk through it with the class, getting class input as I'm doing it because I know that subtraction is a skill that my students can do. So I do that, and my answer is 56. But that's not the end of it, and I have to remind them. I know with some of my students, I'm going to have to remind them, yes, 56 is what you got from doing this first operation, but remember, we also have a division thing. So then we're going to take 56 divided by 7. Hopefully, by this point in their schooling, they have their multiplication facts down to a point where they can, without too much stress, say 8. Some students won't be there, and I can work with them on a more individual basis if that's needed. But as a larger class, having other students answer and be able to put that idea and kind of reinforce that idea, and the students who still don't 100% get that will be helpful. So we have it calculated. We're going to make sure it's in the correct form. Again, make sure, did I calculate dollars? Did I say $8? Because that's not correct. It is 8 hours. And also correct form, is it in a fraction or a decimal? Because then we made a mistake and we've got to go back and look. It's going to be a whole number, and the labels should be hours here and not dollars. And then I'm going to walk through self-check, and again, this is going to be more of me talking to myself and saying, so now I'm done, and I'm going to look back. Did I complete all the steps that I said that I had to in my hypothesis, and did I do it accurately? Or the steps that I laid out, did I lay out accurate steps? And then I'm going to check my calculations and say, just, check my math and say, did I carry where I needed to? Did I borrow where I needed to? Are my math facts, do I have those down? And then I'm going to check my answer and say, does this make sense in the context of the problem? If I have an answer that's like 170, obviously that doesn't make sense, because he's making definitely more than $1 an hour, and he only has to make $140 if he wants to start from ground zero with the bike. So I know that doesn't make sense. But yes, my 8 hours, that makes sense. And does it answer the question? Yeah, it answers the question. So I'll be walking through that with the students. And then, as I said at the beginning, that first one, it's more me talking to myself as I'm doing it, with getting a little bit of student input. Then we're going to move on to the next word problem. And this one we're going to walk through as a class. And I'm going to be giving a lot less input and maybe just saying, okay, next step, and guiding the students through that. Then for the final problem, I would want them to do that more independently, and be giving support for students as needed, helping them out with words if they need help with reading the problem, or concepts or anything that they're not understanding with the checklist. Yeah, and I should say these are really great word problems, and I got them from IXL.com, just to cover my bases and letting you know where I got things. These are from IXL.com. It's a really great source, Minnesota standards-based math practice. So I use this with my students, and that's where I got my word problems that I would walk through with my students. Thank you very much.